at around about 10 o'clock on Monday, the 5th of January, Ruben Amorim was sacked as manager of Manchester United, appointed in 2024 in November, led the team to the Europa League final in May. But Manchester United, sitting in sixth in the division, have decided to react to his comments yesterday and fired him. It means that Darren Fletcher is going to take charge of the team against Burnley. Now, Dashboard Dean Ashton is here as well. Now, while he's been pumping up his tyres and hoovering his little boot and changing his little windscreen wipers and de-icing his car this week, me and Crook have been in the depths of stories, trying to pull apart all of the threads. This is an amazing turn of events. Premier League clubs changing managers like you change the oil on your Ford Mondeo. It's amazing, isn't it, really?
Yes, but certainly not as cleanly as I've been doing. I mean, it's messy. It's very messy how this has all come about. And look, it just shows, doesn't it, that there's a line that you cannot cross in terms of what you say publicly, certainly about your employers. And once again, it's the managers that tend to lose their jobs in these situations. Two massive football clubs, all of a sudden, just bang! You're just shattering things mid-season. So interested to see how this all plays out.
Chelsea and Manchester United, in particular, seem to be falling over themselves to see which club has the biggest basket case at this moment in time, because it was a real leaf out the Enzo Maresca playbook, wasn't it, what Ruben Amorim did in the press conference after that 1-1 draw against Leeds that you commentated. Good point for Manchester United on the face of it, but that really isn't the main story this morning.
So, listeners and viewers, we're going to let you in on a little secret here. This is the second time, actually, in the space of 5 days that whilst doing a podcast, a manager has been fired. So this is what happened. We started the podcast. We did the introduction. We got into it. We sort of knew he was going to get fired, but we didn't know when it was going to happen. We thought it might happen over the next couple of days. Dean actually thought it would go on for a little bit longer, but Crook and I had a little bit of information that it might happen a little bit sooner than that. We didn't expect it to happen whilst we were recording. So we've actually recorded quite a lot of analysis of what we think is going to happen anyway. So you'll hear that in a minute, which is basically us talking as if he's been fired because we knew it was going to happen. But there also is a point when we get later down into the podcast, and we're probably going to keep this in so that you can see what happened, where both of our phones go off and we're like, hold on a second, we've got to stop because Amorim's just been fired. So we'll probably let you see a little bit of that as well, or hear a little bit of that further down the podcast, and you can sort of, you see how it all works. So this is Premier League All Access. Alex Crook is here somewhere. Dean Ashton is with us as well. We're going to look at the Amorim situation. We're going to look at the Chelsea situation. We're going to talk about West Ham, Nottingham Forest in what is a pivotal match as we get to 10 Premier League games live on talkSPORT this week. And Arsenal, Liverpool will briefly touch on as well. But listen, there's only one story in town, right? And that is the revolving management door at Premier League football clubs. Leeds United won, Manchester United won. Dean Ashton, first of all, good game, bit scrappy, both not at their best. It was a bit of a passionate derby. The atmosphere was great. Šeško missed a great chance, actually two good chances. Dominic Calvert-Lewin hit the post. But if you look at both those two strikers, one of them looks like they could be worth 65 million quid and the other one looks like they signed on a free. However, I've got a feeling that if you were coming from the planet Mars, you might get them the wrong way round. Why?
Because one is confident and one isn't. And sometimes it is as simple as that. You look at Šeško's highlight reel, and this guy is super talented and can score all types of goals and has shown that he can do for club and country. He gets to Manchester United and all of a sudden the confidence is drained from him and he looks like, a young kid that's starting out and is making mistakes and looking a bit clumsy, whereas Calvert-Lewin looks like a senior player that's found a bit of confidence and that can really tell. I think the worry is for Manchester United, especially in that forward area, is that it's almost like they've swapped Højlund for Højlund, as in looking at a player that just doesn't look confident to take on that role as a Manchester United striker. Now, if you do watch Manchester United, it certainly is not about the striker. I think he was so isolated against Wolves at Old Trafford. I did that game for talkSPORT. He is isolated a lot, but
And
he's
in the
got to
game against Leeds. Until Xerxes came on, again, he was very isolated.
but he still needs to take more responsibility. And you know, if you're signing for Manchester United, you should be a player that's walking in going, I'm going to show everyone how good I am. I'm playing for this football club. That's what the top strikers throughout the history of Manchester United have done. And at the moment he's struggling to handle the weight of the shirt, which is a shame, because I actually thought he would be a terrific fit, and I think he is super talented.
And this is part of Ruben Amorim's problem, right, Crook? Because he wanted Ollie Watkins in the summer. He got Benjamin Sesko because of the hierarchy, deciding that that was a better fit. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was available on a free. They decided not to go down that route. And bearing in mind it's not Ruben Amorim who's signing the players, the burden of responsibility then has to fall on the guy who was the youth team coach at Manchester City and had 9 months as sporting director of Southampton, who were relegated, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that this again is the problem with modern football. A lot of football clubs, and obviously Chelsea, the biggest example, that they don't want to invest in 30-year-olds for the here and now. They want to invest for the future. They want to sign players that are going to increase in value over the course of their contract. But that only really works if the players come in and fire. And Benjamin Šeško isn't firing. Ding has put up a fairly impassioned defence of him there. But I'm not sure that Šeško is an upgrade on Rasmus Højlund. And what I would say, you can talk about him being isolated and starved of service. He gets much more service in this United team, particularly when Mbeumo and Ahmad are there, than Rasmus Højlund ever did. And just doesn't look like he's got it for me. He doesn't look like he's got the belief in his ability. Doesn't look like he's got the confidence to wear that jersey. And I can understand why Ollie Watkins, proven in the Premier League, proven on the international stage, proven as a big game player, having scored in the European Championship semi-final, why he would have been a more attractive proposition. United, to get back into the top four, had to make up 11 places on last season. I'm not sure that Benjamin Šeško possesses the weaponry to make them do that. And you're right. I said it on breakfast on Monday morning. You can criticise Ruben Amorim, I have done, and if he goes, I wish him well, because I think he's a thoroughly decent man who's done the job to the best of his ability. I do think he's been proved to be out of his depth. But that doesn't excuse the sporting directors. And one of the factors in Dan Ashworth's departure was that he wasn't necessarily on board with hiring a manager so wedded to this 3-4-2-1 system that has only ever worked in terms of the Premier League title once in the history of the competition. He didn't believe, I think, that Ruben Amorim's way of playing was suited to the Manchester United squad. Yes, the hierarchy in place now will say, well, he was dithering, he didn't really come up with any better options, and that's why he went. But ultimately, Jason Wilcox and Omar Barada put their faith in this manager, and it's not been repaid. So if you're going to get rid of the manager, you have to look closer at the people who hired him in the first place.
Are Ineos any good? I mean, I'm looking at their investment in Mercedes, their investment in Nice, their investment in the Swiss Club Lucerne, their investment in Ben Ainsley's America's Cup team. I mean, there's no stellar successes there. Do they actually know what they're doing?
It's a brilliant question, and it's one that a lot of Manchester United fans are asking. And actually, I was listening to the game day phone-in, or the final word with Madgen Parge yesterday, and Alan Pardew made the point. Nobody speaks about the Glazers anymore. The Glazers still run Manchester United. They still own the football club. So Jim Ratcliffe is a minority owner who's come in, and he's been given all the day-to-day football decisions. But does his CV and does his body of work in the sporting world justify that? Probably not.
Well, it's a better CV than the Glazers' CV. I mean, they haven't really got exactly a great sporting CV either. But the fact is that
they never finished 15th in the Premier League before Ineos came in.
Well, absolutely true. But it doesn't seem to me that they've made any good decisions so far. You know, the scouting department hasn't been upgraded. You know, Ruben Amorim's coming in for a lot of criticism. I mean, Crook says that he will, wish him the best or whatever, but he's criticised him. Do you think that he's done a good enough job, Dean Ashton, during the period that he's been in case? Well, we're talking like he's going to get fired here or he's going to leave, which we all think is going to happen. Let's be honest about it. No manager walks into a press conference, starts open warfare with the sporting director, and walks out alive. It just doesn't happen. If for example, it does fall in his favour, it'll be Wilcox who ends up going. I can't see that happening because he's mates with Barada, and who's the CEO, and Jim Ratcliffe has put his faith in these people. So I'm guessing that that Amorim will be the fall guy here. However, has he done enough in his 13 months that he's been in charge, Dick?
No, I don't think so. That finishing league position last season simply isn't good enough for a club the size of Manchester United and the players that he had available. That was not a horrendous squad of players. That was not a squad of players that should have finished where they did in the league. And he has been, very stubborn in using that formation when it was clear that he didn't have the players yet for that formation to work at the football club. And ultimately, he's probably not in a strong enough position for his job not to be under severe pressure, especially if you come out and say the things he has done. Look, he got them to a European final, and they should have won that. Tottenham weren't great either, so he had the opportunity to get Champions League football and win a trophy as a Manchester United manager, and he wasn't able to take that. So there's got to be some positives to the fact that he could get them to a final, but I think he's yet to still prove. And also, I want to see my manager improve players that are there. I want to see improvements. If he is the head coach, I want to see players go from there and skyrocket in terms of their ability. If you're a good coach, especially the younger players, I still think we need to see a bit more of that.
Is he guilty of thinking he had too much time? This is a major behemoth of a football club that no one has been able to turn around in the last 10 years. And you've employed all sorts of different managers, right? Okay, so you've had Mourinho, you've had Louis van Gaal, you've had David Moyes, you've had Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, you've had all number of people, Eric Ten Hag, who have come into the football club and tried to turn it around. No one's done it. No one's successfully done it. Crook's moaned about every single one of those. Manchester United fans have been very good, very patient with all of the managers, actually, when they're at Old Trafford, but there's been frustrations with them, and ultimately they haven't lasted very long. Is he guilty of thinking that he had more time than anybody else to turn it around? Because if you assess the transfer windows that he's had, he's brought in 6 frontline players, really, just six, over 2 transfer windows. And bearing in mind that you've given the keys to the door to a guy who is going to play a completely different system, and he believes that he's got the room to do that, you've made him take over halfway through the campaign when he didn't want to do that and said, I'll come in the summer. And you said, no, you've got to come in now. And then you've written off one half of the season. Has he, like, I mean, I can't work out whether he's been backed enough, which I don't think he has, or whether he's been just a little bit too cocksure of the fact that he's got 3 years to do it and has the freedom to do whatever he wants. That he's caused himself a few issues by maybe not being urgent in getting results.
Well, football is still about results. You can talk about long-term projects, but you still need to deliver in the short term. And he seems to have forgotten about the short term in order for this long-term vision to come to fruition. The Europa League final in Bilbao being a classic example of that. If he just sacrificed his principles, as Ange Postecoglou did in Spain that night, it would have been a different outcome, because Tottenham were there for the taking and Manchester United will be back in the Champions League. And obviously financially, that would have given them more financial muscle to strengthen the squad in the summer transfer window and again in this transfer window that we're operating in now. And I think actually he's taken for granted that support from the Manchester United fan. I think some of his decision-making has been quite disrespectful to those match-going Manchester United fans. And again, the classic example of that would be the Everton game. 10 men at home, and he still sticks rigidly to this back three against an Everton team with strikers who never score in the Premier League. He brings on Mason Mount as a left wing-back. I think you're mugging off the match-going fans who are paying to be entertained. Same against West Ham United. And Grimsby in the League Cup obviously has been the nadir this season. So yes, I think he does feel like he is guaranteed to see out this 3-year contract, as Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said publicly, in fairness to him, regardless of results. Football doesn't work like that, because patience does snap in the end.
You say that. I don't think that he's been given enough to be able to play the way he wants to and to take Manchester United on
So
to
play a
where
different way. Get
everybody
wins.
everybody
Play a
thinks that
different
they
way.
should be. Yeah, but if you've been promised that you can play your way and you're going to get the resources to do so, and we understand that as early as November he was told that there will be investment in January, and then over Christmas he was told that isn't going to be the case, then you're going to play towards that goal, aren't you? You know, for all the performances that you've talked about, and there have been bad ones, there was Arsenal at home on the opening day of the season when they were good, Chelsea at home when they won and did very well, Liverpool away when they went to Anfield and took all 3 points. They played brilliantly in the game against Bournemouth from an attacking sense without half of the players that were available. They played against Newcastle at home for a very long time with 10 men and struggled struggled with a really poor squad because they haven't got enough players at this moment in time. Yesterday, they had 8 senior players in the squad. 8 senior players in the squad. Not 8 senior players out, 8 senior players in the actual squad. You know,
Wow.
and they managed to go to Leeds United and come up with a point and actually play okay. It wasn't a brilliant game, but they did okay. They've lost
They're a
2
point ahead
of the
of
last
Brentford.
14.
They're a point ahead of
They've lost 2
Brentford.
of the last 14. They're 8 points
And how
better
many have
off
they
than
won
last season.
in that time?
1 defeat
Come
in
on,
7.
How many games that you have? 7 wins from 14. And who have they beaten?
Right.
Who have they beaten? They're a
Right.
point ahead of Brentford, who lost their
They're
manager,
6th in
their
the Premier
captain,
League.
and their best player. They're a point ahead of Sunderland, who've only just got promoted. They're 2 points ahead of Newcastle, who don't travel outside of the northeast. They're a point ahead of Chelsea, who are imploding from
They're
within.
above
They're
Chelsea.
3 points ahead of Brighton, who've not started yet. Honestly,
How
the
far are
league
they from
position is
Liverpool?
false. The league position, are they above Liverpool? No.
I said, how far are they from Liverpool? I said, how
They're
far are
3
they from
points
Liverpool?
behind
They're not, are
Liverpool,
they?
who again
Exactly.
have been absolutely shocking for most of the first half of the season.
So, because everybody else has been shocking and the whole division is competitive and much more competitive than it was before, you're judging them by old season standards. The fact is they're 6th in the Premier League. They've got the 4th best attack. They've got the 3rd best XG. They've got the 6th best XG against, the 5th most expected points. It's a team that is heading in the right direction. Whatever way you dress it up, the fact is they are coming forward, aren't they, Dean?
I would agree in terms of I don't think he's yet been given the key position for that whole system is the midfielders. And they haven't got him a midfielder that would fit, I think, what he needs.
He's
A
ostracised
Belieber.
one of them.
I know, but if you talk about Carlos Belieber that was rumoured in the summer, that type of midfield player that's got the ability to cover the ground needed and be defensively minded to allow the team to fit around each other, and especially Bruno Fernandes, as he's decided to play him as one of those 2 midfielders, and they haven't given him that player yet, and that for me is just not good enough when it's clear that he's going to play that way. He said he's going to play that way. Well, give him the midfielder or midfielders that he's going to require for that system to work.
So, Crook, let me ask you this question. You want Manchester United to get back to a point where they're competing for Champions Leagues and Premier League, right? Okay. I'm sure that's exactly what you want Manchester United to do. And I'm sure Ineos, in their weird way of operating, believe that that should be the case as well. But would you concur that you are never, ever going to get there unless you have a long-term strategy and stability and investment in a particular way of playing? Otherwise, you are going to find yourself doing what you've done for the last 10 years, which is changing manager, changing strategies, being left with different players from different managers or different sporting directors' ideas. And then in the end, it's just going to keep going round and round and round and round in the same circle. And you're going to end up where you are right now.
But it has to be the right strategy and the right style of play. You can't tell me that this formation is going to work. It's only ever worked once in the Premier League era in terms of delivering a title. Crystal Palace do it very well under Oliver Glasner. But it doesn't work in the Premier League. It doesn't fit Manchester United's DNA. I'm not interested in silverware, okay? We're a million miles away from that at the moment. But I am interested in entertainment. And Manchester United fans, at Old Trafford in particular, have been starved of entertainment. Everton at home, 10 men. Wolves, the worst team in the Premier League era, probably. West Ham, who are on about firing their second manager of the season. You've got to be turning up and you've got to be outperforming those teams. You've got to be taking the game for those teams. That Newcastle game was gritty, right? And those are quite satifying wins. But it wasn't nice to
The
watch.
first half wasn't. The
He
first
doesn't
half
play
wasn't.
with
The first half
wingers.
was really
This
good.
football club is built on wingers.
Yeah, but that sounds like you're harking back to the past and not looking back to to the future. The fact is,
You
once you've
can't have
decided
a
on a
future at a
project,
club like Manchester United without acknowledging the past.
well, you can acknowledge the past, but you don't have to be wedded to it, because that's the same as being wedded to a system, isn't it? That's like turning around and saying, well, we did this before and it got us success in the
I want
90s, so we'll
Manchester
do
United
that
to
now.
play with wide
That
players.
won't
All
work.
right, that's it.
That won't
That's
happen,
it.
will it?
That's
Well,
it.
okay,
I
you
want
can play
wingers.
with wide players, but you don't necessarily have to go back to the 90s in order to do that. You can play in a certain, there's lots of clubs that play with wingers, but they don't play 4-4-2, a big man and a short striker. That doesn't happen. So you have to develop and you have to go forward.
The
And
back three
Manchester
doesn't
United were
work.
trying to go forward. Okay, fine. Don't employ him then. But that's not Ruben Amorim's fault. Ruben
No, I
Amorim has
agree.
always played a back three. 315 games before the game against Newcastle United, he played with a back three. If you expect him to come in and play a back four, you are an idiot.
I agree. He shouldn't have been hired in the first place. He wasn't the right fit from day one.
So what do they do next, Dean?
Well, I mean, look, he's Sir Jim Ratcliffe, publicly in that interview talked about the time scale required for this manager to get things right. So I would fully expect them to continue with that. I mean, obviously the comments are certainly not helpful, and that's something that they are going to have to deal with. But you would expect them to continue with him. I would think so.
Do you think they'll continue with him, Crook?
No, I don't, to be honest. I think when we were preparing our stories on Sunday night and there wasn't much pushback from within the corridors of power at Old Trafford, I think that tells you all you need to know. I think this is going to come to quite an abrupt end.
You think there's every chance that there could be a development before the midweek game, don't you?
I do. Yeah, I do. I can see a Darren Fletcher or even a Michael Carrick in interim charge while they work out what they're going to do moving forward. And listen, the other strand to this is that Enzo Maresca all of a sudden is available. Obviously, here's somebody that Omar Barada
yes.
and Jason Wilcox know from the Manchester City model. Why has Ruben Amorim chosen now to go to war with the hierarchy? Is it because he got wind of that? Maybe some conversations have already taken place.
So we were having this discussion last night. Him in the hot tub, me sitting in the big chair with the red wine, and we're plotting this little course, and we were suggesting, having spoken to a few people in and around it, why would Enzo Maresca engineer a no compensation departure from Chelsea? Let's have a think. Could he possibly have another job lined up somewhere else? I don't know. Would that be the maddest thing you've ever heard, Dean Ashton?
No, I think you're probably both on the right path. I mean, it's quite weird that it probably would fit as well. I think there are probably lots of Manchester United fans that I think would be probably excited with it. I mean, could there be a swap deal, Crook?
What, Ruben Amorim to Chelsea? I think Liam Rossini might have something to say about that, to be honest.
Yeah, he'll only be there for 6 months, won't he? And then they'll change it again, so don't worry about that. Crikey. It is all a bit of a mess, really. I got to be honest with you. And I feel a bit sorry for Ruben Amorim because
Yeah, so
I think
do I.
if you're bought in to do a certain thing and then you're told midway through, oh, hold on a second, we've changed our mind. I mean, how can you bring in a sporting director from Newcastle at great cost and then go after 6 months? Oh, sorry, I think we got it wrong. Bring in Ruben Amorim, and then after a year go, actually, you know what? I think we got it wrong. I mean, how long are you going to do that for? Are you going to keep doing that infinitum? I mean, you're never going to stumble over a golden bullet where someone's just going to walk in and go, hey, look at all these rubbish players. I'll make them into a fantastic Harlem Globetrotter football team. Here's a little sprinkling of magic. I think I can do that. That ain't going to happen. The only way you have long-term success is by having a long-term strategy, a long-term recruitment plan, a long-term strategy of investment in the playing staff and the scouting network. Manchester United have got none of that, have done none of that. And if you don't do that, you won't get the right results. The best clubs in the world have an amazing sporting structure behind the first team. Manchester United haven't had that for years. So you have to implement that. Then you have to have a strategy. Then you have to have a long-term vision. I'm not sure that that is all cohesively apparent at Old Trafford. Am I wrong?
No, you're right, and it's a mess. But whatever way you look at it, it is a complete mess. But it has been for some time, and I'm not sure that it's got any better under Ineos. Yes, you know, they've signed some decent players. I mean, Mateus Cunha, I thought was excellent against Leeds, so brave in possession, so brave on the ball, but they're still a long way from where they were not that long ago.